In our front door, Alan Dershowitz, lifelong Democrat, attorney, Harvard Law School professor, and author of Trumped Up. You actually predicted what is happening right now in this book.
Sure, it's all about leverage. They're going after Manafort on something that apparently has nothing to do with Trump. Years ago, his own business.
Tax fraud.
Yeah, but what they're saying to him is, we got you now, and we don't care about that. But if you can tell us something about Trump and the campaign and collusion, we'll give you a get-out-of-jail card free. So it's all about leverage. That's the way prosecutors work.
And Gates lasted a little bit longer, a longtime protege with the same international contacts. And after Manafort was jettisoned, he stayed. Then he went to a super PAC, and then they told him to leave the super PAC. One thing is, the Trump people did move quick to get rid of Manafort as soon as these Eastern European ties came up.
Sure, and that will help Trump distance himself. But Manafort knows where the bodies are buried. He was an intimate. And if anything happened wrong in the campaign, and there's no evidence that anything did, Manafort would know about it. Even if he wasn't directly there, he'd heard about it. Sure. And so this is an important event for Mueller to try to get leverage over this intimate. You know, the first rule in American crime is if you're going to commit a crime, commit it with somebody more important than you are. So you can turn them in. They can't turn you in, right. And that's what's going to happen. Now, you know, there may be a deal in the works. He may be trying to make a deal with the prosecution. He may be dangling the information so that he wants Trump to pardon him. I don't think Trump's going to pardon him. I think politically that would be, could, of course, politically that would be difficult. Legally, constitutionally, there'd be no problem in doing it. But Manafort now is the first domino. And what Mueller wants to do is see him as the first domino, the second domino, the third domino, ultimately trying to get to the big domino, that is President
What if Manafort
Trump.
Doesn't have anything on the president?
Then he's
no more Russia collusion? Are we done with this?
And he's going to twist in the wind because if he has nothing to offer, then he's just going to have to defend himself on these financial charges that have nothing to do with Trump. This shows the danger of a special prosecutor.
It certainly does, especially when that special prosecutor 8 years ago was a bagman on the tarmac with the FSB, KGB, giving him weapons-grade uranium samples for then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And then they do a uranium deal for 20 to 30% of our uranium, and now we learn they get hundreds of millions of dollars. And the foundation is totally offshore, billions of dollars in it. Manafort was running the major campaign in Ukraine and directing tens of millions of dollars around paying people with offshore accounts. It's what you do when you're offshore working for another country. It's totally legal. I remember talking to Roger Stone 6 months ago, and he said, I've talked to Manafort, a good friend of mine, former business partners, and he said, all it might be is like filling out tax forms about offshore businesses. And that's sure enough what it is. That's why I've never gotten offshore accounts to put money so that they're outside of the hands of the government or lawsuits or whatever, even a small amount, when lawyers have tried to get me to, because I've read the regulations. They've written it where they can indict Jesus Christ. They could indict a ham sandwich, folks. They could indict Mountain Air in Colorado as being satanic. I mean, but what's crazy is I've never seen the equivalent of having Hitler preside over the Nuremberg trials after World War II. I mean, you've got the Clintons and the Democrats historically on the payroll of the Russians. And now they're totally on the payroll, totally caught, just like Roger Stone said a year and a half ago here, blaming everybody but them for the Russian collusion, even telling Tucker Carlson, oh, you're probably a Russian agent. You're being paid by Putin. Rand Paul, John McCain said, we know Rand Paul's being paid by Putin. And Rand Paul said, I don't even know how to respond to that. It, of course, was totally untrue. Just like Fusion GPS, that they now we know paid $12+ million for. I mean, I mean, I guess they could have paid a homeless schizophrenic $5 to come up with a story better than this. Roger Stone, former head of the Trump campaign, good friends with Manafort. InfoWars broke the news that it wasn't just Manafort, but it was his assistant and others yesterday. And now the word is they want to go after Flynn as well. This other guy, I guess, did a plea bargain last minute. What is the latest intel that you have for us?
Well, Alex, InfoWars certainly on an incredible roll. It was InfoWars who broke the story of the release of the classified JFK documents. It was InfoWars that broke the story of the identity of the Bush-Rubio Republican money man, Paul Singer, who was the initial funder of the dirty dossier prepared by GPS Fusion. And then yesterday, it was InfoWars that broke the story definitively that it was Paul Manafort and his longtime associate and deputy in the Trump campaign, Rick Gates, who indeed were indicted this morning. I am a little confused. I thought Mueller's investigation pertained to Russian collusion in the 2016 election. These charges seem to have nothing whatsoever to do with that. Looks to me like they charged Manafort with everything but the Lincoln assassination. And I think the play here is clear to the American people. They seek to pressure Paul Manafort to bear false witness against the president, to say, yes, I colluded with the Russians and Donald Trump knew all about it. And that, of course, would be perjury. That would be a lie. And I've known Paul Manafort for over 40 years, almost 50 years. He was an usher in my wedding to my lovely wife, and he was my campaign manager when I ran for Young Republican National Chairman successfully, 1977. We go all the way back to college Republicans in Connecticut. I don't believe he will bear false witness against the president. I believe he will plead not guilty to these charges. But it appears to me that that Mueller seeks to treat this like some kind of a mafia drug case. There I am with Lee Atwater, the late Lee Atwater, and my friend Manafort during the heyday of Black Manafort and Atwater.
And by the way, when it was one of the biggest lobbying firms in D.C., let's be clear here about this. They have accused you of being a Russian agent, a kingpin with no evidence, said that I get my directives and money directly from the Kremlin. Just that is absolutely 100% BS, zero truth in that. But then they, again, accused Rand Paul, Tucker Carlson. This is ridiculous. It's like, which? It's like a Monty Python skit if it wasn't so dangerous.
No, it's neo-McCarthyism. If you're not in favor of thermonuclear war with the Russians over Syria, well, then you're a traitor to the United States. You're not a loyal American. I mean, this is reaching absurd proportions. It's very clear to me what the president needs to do here, Alex, and that is he must insist upon the appointment of a special counsel on the issue of Uranium One. That investigation would have to focus on Mr. Mueller, Mr. Comey, Mr. McCabe, the associate director of the FBI, and Rod Rosenstein, then the U.S. attorney, now the de facto attorney general of the United States. Those gentlemen would have to step down if they were the target of a federal investigation. The president's tweet is exactly right here. There was a presidential candidate in bed with Putin. There was a presidential candidate pocketing millions from Russians close to Putin. But that candidate is Hillary Clinton. And this investigation is focused at the wrong people where there is no crime. In the Uranium One matter, there is most definitely a crime and a cover-up by the by the Obama Justice Department.
And you've got Mueller covering it up. You've got him in bed with the Russians. You've got him as a backman. You've got him getting way more money than Trump's ever gotten from Russians. In fact, Trump's gotten zero. How do they think they can get away with this galactic record conflict of interest? I've never seen a conflict of interest like this. This is comic book level. It'd be like in your divorce case if you were the judge against your spouse. It's just you have to recuse yourself. You have to resign.
Well, what's amazing here, of course, is the role of the Trump Justice Department. Right now, the Trump Justice Department is...
Yeah, let's talk about that, because it was a bunch of Obama holdovers that basically did this whole thing. This is a literal attempted legal coup against the president. When I say legal, I mean by a legal system. It's not legal. It's clear tyranny. We'll be back with Roger Stone. I'm Alex Jones. Well, this is from last night where InfoWars spoiled Mueller's shock indictment. Here it is. We've put out the names exclusively here of who's been indicted, according to our sources, and who is going to be arrested tomorrow, and who's been told, don't try to use your passport and don't try to leave the country. Urgent, Paul Manafort and his campaign deputy will be indicted tomorrow morning with a third unidentified person. I am boarding a plane. Deputy Rick Gates is the other deputy. That's Manafort and then Rick Gates. They do not know the charge, and the source does not know, again, the third person. Or then later I learned who the person was, but they don't want that out because they don't want it known because they haven't talked to him. So that's that. Get tomorrow's news today here at InfoWars. That's why they want to shut us down. They do not like it. They don't want you having access to that or you having access to us to give us info in a symbiotic relationship. Roger, it isn't like we're taking a position here to be right. The Democrats are completely in bed with the Russians, the Communist Chinese, everybody else. They found nothing in a year-long investigation. They created a, $13+ million dossier. The Democrats just gave $12,400,000. Obama gave $900,000. The Republicans paid $50,000 to start the thing rolling, and it's just a complete made-up fiction. Now they're going ahead with indictments, and you read this indictment. I've gone over it. You've got the floor here in the next few minutes. Tell us what's happening and what's unfolding and what the next shoe to drop are.
Well, I really think the answer here, Alex, is when are we going to get a Trump Justice Department? Right now, we seem to still have the Obama Justice Department. Rod Rosenstein is the de facto Attorney General. He is a liberal Republican from Maryland who was appointed at the recommendation, unbelievably, of Baltimore Democrat Congressman Elijah Cummings. His appointment was pushed by Reince Priebus, the former White House chief of staff, and he is up to his ears as U.S. attorney in the Uranium One matter. But incredibly, the Trump Justice Department is in federal court today arguing against the release of Hillary's emails. The Trump Justice Department needs to launch an investigation, a special counsel, if you will, to look into the matter of Uranium One, where we know that Mr. Mueller, Mr. Comey, Mr. McCabe, the associate director of the FBI, who authorized the use of taxpayer monies to pay Fusion GPS or GPS Fusion for the dirty dossier, and whose wife received a giant infusion of cash to her state Senate campaign from the Clintons, funneled through Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, and then, of course, Rosenstein himself. So it seems to me that we do need a special prosecutor, but not to look into the non-crime of Russian collusion, which is unproven, for which there's still no evidence, but Uranium One, where there is a very real crime, the cover-up of bribery involving the Russians, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and their foundation.
Now, Roger, separately, we see massive arrest of pedophiles everywhere. We know that's a big part of Hollywood's operation. You've got reports here of top Hollywood star Kevin Spacey apologizing for trying to rape a 14-year-old at some party. They're trying to spin that as him coming out of the closet. Neither you or I, are anti-LBGT, whatever. The point is, I'm not even concerned with what people do in their own lives. But I don't like when children get targeted. And you've got that constellation floating around. You've got the NFL with record low ratings. The seats are empty. Everything they touch is falling apart politically right now. How does that add into the mix of this? Because even if they're able to bring down Trump, which I don't think they'll be able to, it would be a Pyrrhic victory because the public globally is awakening.
Well, and watch the president's tweets. You see, he totally gets it. The focus should not be on the question of Russian collusion in the Trump campaign. They've spent millions of tax dollars and countless hours looking into that, and they've come up empty-handed. If Mr. Mueller is going to bring charges today, they should have related in some way to Russia. This clearly is an attempt to pressure Manafort to make things up against the president. I've known him over 50 years. I just don't believe he's going to do that, that he's not going to lie against the president of the United States in some bid to save his own skin. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. In our system, you are innocent until proven guilty. I don't even know that he's guilty of the many things he's accused of today. He's going to have his day in court. But this is an effort that they use in mafia drug cases to try to squeeze somebody to bring in a bigger fish. In this case, the only bigger fish is the president of the United States. It is outrageous. We need a Justice Department that is committed to the rule of law and the president's tweet is exactly right. Why do Bill and Hillary Clinton continue to skate on provably illegal activities in connection with Uranium One and other scandals with impunity? It's outrageous.
Well, I got to tell you, Roger, that personally, this just disgusts me so much. Not that I'm even scared of Mueller and how the media worships him and acts like he's God and Lord of the Swamp. It's the way these criminals are so arrogant and how they're trying to run the country in the ground and how they're trying to stop the recovery and trying to kill tax cuts. And they're just so nasty. They're beyond any villains in any literature or any movies I ever seen, because truth is stranger than fiction. These people really think they own America. And they want a shrunken, starving America that they can control and buggy whip around. And I'm just personally done with them. And I want them to know, no matter what happens, Mueller and all these other criminals better know that the only place they're popular is in the ass end of this country, Washington, D.C. Everywhere else, they're hated and need to get out of the country.
Well, and Alex, as you know, Twitter suspended my my Twitter feed where I had 298,000 followers when I objected to Don Lemon on CNN saying over and over again, the Clintons have been exonerated on Uranium One. Now, I look at the feed of Keith Olbermann, who uses obscenity constantly, attacking the president of the United States, drops the F-bomb. Twitter won't tell me specifically where I violated their guidelines. In fact, they told me that I was temporarily suspended for 3 hours and 22 minutes. And then at the end of that, my account just went dead.
And by the way, do 5 more minutes with us in the next hour before our next guest joins us in studio. Dinesh D'Souza tweeted out a composite of dozens of tweets calling for violence against conservatives, against libertarians, calling people all sorts of horrible names by Keith Olbermann. He's allowed to be there. But if you say that Don Lemon is as dumb as dog crap, you get yours suspended. And that's what the next hour is about. Antifa is allowed to death threat and attack our guest and prominent people and veterans. And if they just mildly respond back, they're banned. And it's because, just like the intelligence agencies are filled with people like Reality Winner, it's the same thing at Twitter, Facebook, Google, and others. So we're going to come back to you here in just a moment. And the reason I bring it up is it dovetails into Roger Stone and how you have just been like, has happened to other folks that are too effective, like Milo. They're saying this may be, Politico says it may be a permanent ban from Twitter for daring to challenge the dinosaur media. Just amazing.
Yeah, it's really extraordinary. It's hard to say, Alex, because all I've ever heard from Twitter is that I would be suspended for 3 hours and 22 minutes. That was on Saturday. And after the clock ran down on that, what they said in their communication to me was a temporary suspension. I've heard nothing from them, and they don't respond to my inquiries. I don't even know specifically what tweet they objected to, although I think I'm being held to a completely different standard. It seems to me that Keith Olbermann and others have said things far worse, far less temperate than what I'm accused of saying. I really think that this was an attempt to silence me just before the Mueller takedown of Manafort. Fortunately, people who miss my feed on Twitter can follow at Stone Cold Truth. They do a pretty good job of covering my exploits. It's not like my feed, but they're very adept at keeping up with what we're doing here at InfoWars and elsewhere.
And I was about to say, as we all get silenced, it's important for all the listeners and viewers to understand, magnify what Roger's doing. Magnify what I'm doing. Magnify what our next guest is doing. And when we see you getting censored, we magnify what you're doing. That's why we're winning, is because we're not like the left, only out for themselves. We understand and we stand for something, and we are winning, Roger. That's why the swamp has indicted Manafort.
That's absolutely right. The most important thing InfoWarriors can do is take the very best stories from InfoWars. For example, last week, we had an eyewitness who confirmed that Ted Cruz's father, Rafael Cruz, was indeed on the ground with Lee Harvey Oswald, and that the National Enquirer was right. That link should be retweeted by InfoWarriors everywhere.
Or this one that's on drudgereport.com by Dr. Corsi. FBI reliance on discredited Fusion GPS Russia dossier threatens Manafort prosecution. And in 1 minute we have left, we're not just putting a good face on this. This is doomed. This is a PR disaster. They already tried to steal the nomination and steal the seating of the president. This is more sour grapes, and it's not going well. Everybody I know sees through it.
Well, and now we have ties between CNN and a chief correspondent there and GPS Fusion. No, the web gets worse and worse, and we at InfoWars is going to keep covering this story as it unravels, keep bringing people.
And by the way, you've announced you are suing Twitter.
Say again?
I saw in the news, are you going to sue Twitter?
Well, I'm conferring with lawyers. I mean, yes, if we have a strong antitrust case or a strong First Amendment case, I'm hoping they will come to their senses and restore me. Again, I've never been informed that I'm permanently banned. I only hear that from reporters. They don't respond to me at all, other than they're claiming that my suspension was temporary. So we shall see.
Well, that's how they do it. When they finally ban you, they don't want you to know you're banned, so you get the attention. They just want to act like the censorship's not happening. Amazing. We'll talk soon. Infowars.com reporter Roger Stone with his ear to the ground and plugged into Pennsylvania Avenue, you name it. We'll be talking to you very soon. I know you're going to be on the War Room today, coming up 3 o'clock Central Time, as Paul Joseph Watson will be as well. Thank you, Roger Stone.
Look forward to it, Alex.
All right, we got an amazing guest in studio.